Welcome to Scott, or welcome back. We are with you again today with a very important topic: island tourism in turbulent waters. Today's webinar is going to deal with a very hot topic that is related to climate change, sustainability, and many local communities around the world are dealing with this issue, which is the core of Scott webinars discussions as well. Without any ado, I'm going to invite Professor Jafari, the president of Scott, to open the webinar with the opening remarks. Professor Jafari, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Qasim. I add my welcome to yours. Thank you very much for joining us. As Qasim said, we have a very interesting and important topic, tourism topic for discussion. Somehow, some people suddenly may think that island tourism is a remote topic. But when we think about it, there's lots of island tourism everywhere in the Mediterranean, Pacific Ocean, all over the world. Sometimes we forget that the whole country could be an island, like Malta, like Cyprus, like Taiwan, like Maldives. These are all countries, but they are islands. So it's a very universal topic. It's everywhere in the world, and it's island tourism opportunities and problems and opportunities are unique to islands. There are some advantages. For example, in the case of statistics, it's easier to calculate arrivals and departures because it's either by air or by boat, by ship, or cruise lines or whatever it might be. But then when it comes to resources, that would be a different story. Island countries, by definition, are located in waters, and yet water is one of the scarce resources that they have. I frequent, for example, Mallorca of Spain, and one of the problems is water. So when it rains, the local people in Mallorca are very happy because the water table goes up, and therefore more tourists can come. Also, the amount of food and resources that have to be imported to islands in order to have tourism makes the case of island tourism very special. I'm not here to give you a lecture on island tourism. I'm here to learn about island tourism and all the opportunities and challenges that it offers. So I welcome you to another session of Scott webinar series. We are happy that you have joined us wherever you are. In my case, I'm in the United States very early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And of course, we are a universal group with different times, all joining together to discuss island tourism. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm looking forward to learn from the presentations of today.
Thank you, Professor Jafar. We are going to hear the presentations and share information in the topic. Let me have a quick review of the abstract of the webinar to make everybody reminded, and myself, about the important topic. This webinar explores crucial themes relating to the current development of island tourism. The inherent isolation of island societies has changed with their newfound accessibility in the era of low-cost airlines. The exploding popularity of islands, despite their limited resources, is one of the several key issues that have strongly affected how island tourism has developed. This webinar will highlight the challenges of island tourism by analyzing how authenticity and storytelling are used to attract tourists to the Greek island of Los, and by presenting a case study in sustainable operations based on the experience of Attitude Hotels. Further, the webinar examines the proliferation of short-term accommodation rentals in Cyprus, including market limitations of hotel distribution in island tourism. Today's webinar is moderated by Professor Dimitris. Professor Dimitris has been pursuing an international career as a tourism and hospitality consultant and project manager, implementing projects in 38 countries, and his work has covered nearly every aspect of tourism planning, destination marketing, hotel development, and operations, ranging from market research and concept development to digital marketing and staff training. He has worked, among others, on behalf of ministries of tourism, national and local level DMOs, the World Tourism Organization, major donor organizations such as the European Union, EBRD, and the Asian Development Bank, the Athens Olympic Games Organization Committee, Chambers of Commerce, Industry Association, as well as private businesses. Dimitris is too famous to be introduced by me in the webinar. Everybody knows him and his great team that I'm going to ask him to introduce them one by one and invite them to the floor. We are very eager to listen to you and to your team, Dimitris. The floor is yours. You are muted, Dimitris.
Yes, thank you so much, Kazem Jafar, for having me, for your kind invitation. We will be delving into some key issues of island tourism, and there's nobody better to talk about it than three experts in island tourism, representing islands that I had the privilege to work with the local authorities in regard to development tourism. So we have three different islands being represented by our panelists. So first we are going to talk with Eleni Tasiakou. She's located on a small Greek island, Ios. We are going to talk with Juliet Delustal. She connects with us from the far, far away islands of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. And then we will get back to the Mediterranean and we'll be talking with Anna Farmaki, based in Cyprus. But let us first start with Eleni Tasiakou. Let me just...
Hello from me too. Thank you for the invitation.
1 second. Let me share the presentation. Okay. Sorry. We will sort that out. Sorry, but now we can have a better look. Okay. So we are now going to start. We are going to cover three topics about island tourism. Sorry, but let me just restart the share. Sorry about that. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So the first topic we are going to cover with Eleni Tasiakou is product development. So how do we come up with a new tourism product, a new tourism experience within the context, of a small island? So Eleni is based, as I said, on the island of Ios. And she is going to present the case study of her own business, which is a new farm experience being operated on this island for a few years now. So, Eleni, what are you going to be talking about?
All right, so we live on an island. Ios is a very small island. I'll show you in a second. Big investments are not the best thing to do, at least for small families like us. The return of the investment would not be that much quick, so as to be happy, for us to be happy. Well, let's move on the next slides for you to see where our island is. So this is Greece. You see Athens, you see Mykonos and Santorini. So between Mykonos and Santorini, closer to Santorini, you see Ios. That means we don't have an airport. That means that we are dependent on Santorini, mostly for our tourism, for our guests. And my husband's family has a really big history in cheese making. They had animals. In 1922, you see the timeline here. In 1922, there's the oldest reference to the Haros farm, to the Haros family. In 2009, my husband decided to modernize the establishment. He created a modern cheese place, a modern dairy farm with milking systems and like everywhere. And in 2016, we reached a point that we weren't that much happy of the profits, the revenue and the profits of the business. So we had two options. We would either be industrialized, bigger quantity. We would produce bigger quantity of cheese, and our quality would be not that much perfect as a homemade product, or we would focus into tourism. And this is where I stepped in to the whole project. I was trained to work in tourism, so I thought, hey, let's share our family's history with the guests. There was not so in 2020 we started the visitable part of the business. Let me tell you that.
If I may add that you have studied, you made tourism studies in Switzerland.
Yes.
You worked for many years in the hospitality industry. So you have worked at several hotels throughout several Greek islands. From Mykonos, Skiathos, you arrived in Ios. So you brought in a different perspective to what used to be a typical farm, a typical agricultural business. So what kind of tourism potential did you see in this long family tradition and heritage?
Yes, I was the third eye. I was the observer. I didn't have any feelings with the business before, so as to get blind, let's say, from my feelings. So I saw that on the island, there was nothing at all connecting the guests with the culture. Nothing at all. So the guests would come on the island and just see the sea, the beaches, the water sports, the restaurants, the hotels, but no activities connecting the guests with the culture.
And so you made launched the Diaseli.
Exactly. We had no money, let me tell you. That was a very difficult time for our business. We had no money. So I thought, let's have a step back. Let's see what we have and what we can do with what we have. So we took advantage of the rich family history. So the new concept, we created a new concept, we created a new brand, a new website, logo, everything from scratch with a very, very low budget. Let's move to the next slide. Of course, the storytelling. So I had numerous and long talks with my mother-in-law. She shared a lot of facts about local life with me because I could transfer it to the guests. She doesn't speak, nobody of the family can speak English. So I was the means for the history to reach the guests. These are the new etiquettes of the products. You see, everything is connected. Nothing is by luck. Even the logo is the history that is unfolding to the guests. The goat follows the technotropia, the way. The ancient, the ancient history that connects with the island, with the local islands. And here is the small museum we created. We created a small museum, which is an exact copy of a house and a cheese place of a few decades and centuries ago on the island.
So you recreated the life, the rural
Excellent.
life as it used to be by the grandparents of Dimitris and
Yes.
your the family
Of the
members.
family and consequently of the islanders, of the locals, because the family was here on the island for who knows. I mean, it's lost in time.
So what used to be a place just producing cheese now has been transformed into a visitor attraction, and you are offering several activities for people coming to your farm.
We created a guided tour of about 30 minutes that the guests can enter and see and listen to us explaining how locals used to live before tourism, how locals would survive before tourism. The way they would live, they would work, they would produce products and everything. They were self-sufficient, and it's very, very interesting for the guests to imagine and realizing how much difficult life used to be on the islands before tourism and how people were surviving. And then after that, the guests could have the experience of tasting all the local products that we produce on our farm. That is cheese, honey, herbs, vegetables. Yes. And last year we added a new project, the project of the cooking experience. My mother-in-law cooks some nice things for them. They help, and they really, really enjoy it.
So
throughout these
I see some
years, remember that we started in 2020. So throughout these 5 years, we were observing and adjusting to the guests. So there was an exchange. It was an interactive way of building our business, and having a look at the social media and the reviews and everything, that seems it works.
Okay, so here I have sent Eleni some questions. So let's go quickly through those questions, and please share your first-hand experience, of setting up such a small scale yet very successful new tourism product. So, how did the market react to this new product?
Okay, so academically speaking, I did some field work. So I had to observe the market. I had to analyze the environment and I found a niche. I found something that was not didn't exist. So in the beginning, we were completely alone because we had to prove that we can make guests happy. But once local businesses saw that we were doing something very nice, they started supporting us more and more. So every year for us is better than the previous one till now.
I attended one of your guided tours. I eavesdropped, and this gave me the possibility of seeing how you approach this storytelling that you have developed, and I found it to be quite emotional. So, how do visitors react to your narrative about the past, about the difficult years, living an agricultural life on a very small island? So, how do people react to what you are telling them?
They are compassionate. They really enjoy all this experience. They take this with them. They become part of the family. We're very passionate of what we do. We love what we do, and I think it's very, very important. That's why we do it with this excitement, and it's authentic, it's real, it's not fake, it's not a storytelling that you create out of nothing. There is a base, there is a value to what we do, so the guests feel it and they become a part of the family. So that they really, yeah.
And as you are dealing with a business, so you took the risk, you created a new product, a new tourism product. You successfully launched it, as you described. So where's the farm's income coming from? So concerning your income sources, how have they evolved?
So yes, before we launched the Aseli project, the farm was not visitable. So that means that we were focusing on the goats, on the milk, on the making cheese, and we were selling at wholesale prices. That means low prices, not that much high as retail. Then when we became more extrovert and we accepted guests in our farm, we started increasing our income because of the food service, of the cooking classes, of the service of the guided tours, the shop that allowed us to have retail prices. So the revenue and the profit increased.
But by how much? So what was the impact on
more than double?
So you doubled the farm's income by
more
making
than double sometimes. Yes,
tourism,
yes. And we still and there is still space for it to become even more.
Okay.
We have future plans, of course, because we always think of the future, not of the now. Because everything comes to an end. So we need to have new ideas for the future. We think of some traditional houses because guests actually gave us this idea because they asked us if they could spend a night in this museum because it's a house. So we thought of creating some traditional houses looking like the museum so the guests could have a better experience. And of course, food of my mother-in-law, something very traditional and home cooked.
But you will continue producing
Yes.
cheese, so which is the main, the
For
traditional.
the moment, yes, but this is a completely different conversation. Things on the islands, on the small Greek islands, are very, very difficult for farms and farmers and people that work with the land. Unfortunately, we don't know for how long we will be able to produce cheese.
And I understand that climate change has highly affected. There's no rain, so it's very difficult continuing to
Indeed,
rear
indeed,
animals on
indeed.
the island.
We need to adapt. We need to be open to new, and to adapt.
Okay, at this point, I must say that I'm very thankful to Eleni for giving me the possibility to work with her. We prepared a case study about the farm that she just described. So the Aseli traditional cheesery farm has been described in a book chapter that you can see. If you want to read about this case in more detail, please have a look at it. You can visit my ResearchGate page in order to access this chapter. So I think this is a quick overview about the challenges of developing a new tourist product on a small island. Thank you so much, Eleni, for providing us with this overview. Kazem, if I may ask, shall we take questions for this case study now or at the end?
I think we are going to receive questions on the chat and we answer them at the end.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So to finish up this presentation of this case study, Eleni, so based on your experience from setting up such a new product in an island destination, what would you recommend to other people thinking of doing something similar, making such a big step? So any recommendations you would like to share?
Well, it depends on the background of each one of what I mean, the financial background, let me say. Well, if there is not a financial background, like there was not in our case, then small steps, take a step back and see what you can do with what you have. And if we do something authentic, real, not fake, and we use a storytelling that can touch people, then slowly success will come.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. Let's move on to our next guest, to our next panelist. It's Juliette Delustal. She is sustainability manager at a hotel group based in Mauritius, in the Indian Ocean. It's Attitude Hotels. Several months ago, I had a very interesting cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism of Mauritius, and this gave me the opportunity to come across the work being done by Attitude Hotels. It's a point of reference for its dedication to sustainability. So before you will walk us through your case study, Juliette, please let us know, how does somebody come to have this position of sustainability manager? So what is your background that took you to this post?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dimitris, for the introduction and for your question. Are you able to hear me? Is it okay?
Yes, of course,
yes?
Of course.
Perfect. In my case, I have a master degree in tourism, and I specialized during my master degree in sustainability. But it was a passion at heart before all of it. I grew up near to the sea, to the nature, close to the nature. It's always been something important for me. And to be completely honest, I think working in the sustainability sector has been really valuable, more than what I have been able to learn in during studies, because everything's changed so quickly in terms of sustainability. You have the big theory, of course, but when you're looking into sustainability, you can learn so much new things every year. You know, you have a lot of papers, scientific papers that are out, new recommendations. So it's something that is changing a lot because you want to avoid greenwashing. So it's a continuous curve, for a learning curve. Yes.
You know, many hotel companies are claiming that they are operating in a sustainable manner, but I really was impressed with the work that you do at Attitude Hotel. So if you please can share your screen and
Yes.
walk us through the work you are doing.
Yes, of course.
It's an excellent case study what you are doing there, and something that all hotel professionals, and not just hotel professionals, can learn precious things about operating sustainably. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So you're able to see the slides. Is it good?
Yes, we can see them.
Yes, perfect. So very quickly, you've done my introduction already. It's done. That slide is just to give you an idea of our visual identity, and just to give you a bit of context about Attitude and the philosophy of the group. So it's one of our little tagline: hotels that do good. It's not for nothing. As a group, we define ourselves as a purpose-driven company, meaning that we don't have only the goal of creating revenues, even if every company is the goal is to create revenue. You don't have a choice to be sustainable. But also we have identified a goal that we are putting every effort to reach. And so we like to define that Attitude, we exist through our locally grounded experience, meaning that everything you will experience in our hotels will be local, and is to make holidays that do good for those who experience them, so our guests, good for the guests, of course, but also good for the one who make them possible, meaning our employees, meaning our suppliers, our partners, the inhabitants of the island, all the ecosystems around. Meaning that when we are taking a decision at Attitude, we always take all the stakeholders that are involved. Is the decision good for the country, for the environment, for our partners? So it's just to explain that it's really integrated in our business model and in everything we do in our operations, and that the only label that recognize the status of a purpose-driven company is B Corp. It's an international level. It's based in. It was created in the United States, and in Mauritius, you don't have the official status of being a purpose-driven company. You have it in UK, in France, in the US, for example, but you don't have it in Mauritius. So we try to become certified B Corp to legitimate our status and to show that sustainability is really incorporated in every operation, in every step and every department of the company. So just quickly to give you the context, one of the main things we have been recognized through B Corp is our way to take care of the people. First of all, our family members, our employees, with the opportunity to grow with the career, for all the training we are offering, for the benefits, etc. And in the guest experience, because when you want to become sustainable in your operations, you have the basics that everyone can do, but it won't differentiate. It won't differentiate yourself. So one of the main thing about sustainability that help us to differentiate our product is to become really local, to show everything that comes from Mauritius. It comes from the food and beverage, the experiences you can have on the hotel, the food, the decoration, the furnitures, because a lot of things have disappeared in Mauritius, unfortunately, because of the globalization. It's a normal way to grow, but everything was imported, and in every hotel you will find the same chairs, the same bed, the same everything. And so, and you could be in Mauritius, but you could have been in your island in Greece, you could have been in Seychelles, in Maldives. It could have been the same products. So it's really something we wanted to change. So most of the things you will find in Mauritius has been crafted by artisans here, by craftsmen here. Approximately 70% of our furniture are made locally, something like that. And just to give you an overview regarding actions for the environment, we have removed all the single-use plastic in our hotels in the guest experience. We have double bottles to avoid plastic bottles with water fountains. We have created local mineral sunscreen to avoid people coming into the sea with because mainly the sunscreen are from chemical filters, and it's really bad for the lagoons and the biodiversity. So we have created our own sunscreen, and it's free of charge. So no bad impact on the lagoon. And there is a little picture here you can see at the top of the slide with a lollipop, because a lot of time when you go in the hotel, you have your minibar and you find, for example, Magnums or international brands of lollipop. No lollipop. No, it's not like no ice cream. Sorry, ice cream. And but we couldn't find anything without any plastic packaging. So we had to create with a local brand here to co-create an ice cream to be able to be found in our hotels, because we couldn't find any ice cream without plastic packaging. So we had to create it. So it's really in our mindset, in our way to do things. When we can't find something, we create it. But of course, all the time with collaborations, because you can't do anything on your own. If you are alone. 30% of our menus are vegetarian and or vegan, for the new trends also of consumption, but also to reduce our impact on the environment, to reduce our carbon footprint. We have all the basics you can find to reduce water, reduce energy consumption. So that's not as sexy as the others initiatives, but when you want to be seen as sustainable, you have basics that you can't avoid, and even more on an island where you have water scarcity. And also we have that mission to raise awareness on the ecosystems around. For the kids and for the adults, we have also a center with marine biologists in one of our hotels. And that one, you can see the different pictures, is for the kids in the family-friendly hotels, because the children, it's really important to raise awareness with them. And even our spas, the products are made locally. You have zero nasty in it. I'm really proud of that spa. It means that when you want to create something, I'd say that to differentiate yourself, you can do it in a good way. And here we are really proud of it, because you have a lot of benefits, natural benefits in those products, and you can support the local economy, and you have zero chemicals in it. That's possible. So that's it to give a global picture of what we do here in Mauritius.
Okay, so thank you so much for this presentation. It's really impressive how you approach sustainability in a 360 way. So you try to cover every possible aspect of it. How easy or how difficult was it for you implementing all those sustainability measures?
I think the first thing to help you when you are a sustainability person, that you have to have on board the top management. If you are not able to convince the board, the top management person, you can't do anything, because sometimes you need investment, sometimes you need vision, you need people that will be able to see what will be the benefit for the company to implement those kind of actions, because sometimes it's not that tangible as doing an advert campaign, for example, or creating a new I don't know what can I say about a new product. Sometimes it's just a bit intangible, but it's for the long run. And if you don't have in your company someone with a vision, could be hard. So implementing all of those actions, it has been easy because I have the support of the top management in my company. And also because in Mauritius, it's a little island. So you see, like, you can really start new things because you have, everyone is around and you have all the contacts of the suppliers. So you can move quickly thanks to the size of the island. But also the challenge is you don't have a lot of proposition of product or a lot of offer. So it has good aspects and also bad aspects.
And finally, concerning the business aspects of investing so much in sustainability, how does it affect profitability? So does it make sense from a business point of view, what you are doing?
For the long term, yes. You can find studies online with some figures. We are certified B Corp, and there are studies showing that B Corp certified companies are doing better than their competitors in some sectors. Why is that? I think because you really understood what your guests want. And also you can more retain your employees. Also, you can really create a company culture around it, meaning that I think your employees will be able to do the extra mile because they have a purpose in their jobs, you know. So it's things like that makes it, you can see the benefits in it, and also the differentiation on the market. Definitely, like in the portfolio of our partners, as tour operators, we are the one top in mind when you think about sustainable tourism, at least in the Indian Ocean. I'm not claiming in the world, of course not, but at least in Mauritius and in the Indian Ocean, it's like everything is justified, you know, because it makes sense for the community, it makes sense for the environment. Everything just makes so sense, and at the end, the guests will really benefit from it. It's really tangible in our guest experience, and it just creates like true, genuine connection. You can discover the culture. You can see that you can enjoy your holidays, and you don't have anything to think about, because if you want to just be respectful about the environment around you, we have taken care of it. It's already covered for you. So it's something you don't have to think about. Everything is clean, as I can say, the maximum possible.
Thank you so much, Juliette, about this presentation. Let us move forward to the next, to our next panelist, to our next guest. It's Dr. Anna Farmaki. She is assistant professor at the Cyprus University of Technology, based in Limassol in Cyprus. So she represents our third island destination that we are going to present here. Also another destination suffering under great water scarcity. So how is the water situation currently in Cyprus, Anna?
Well, I think this year is going to be difficult because it barely rains. So, with climate change, this type of problems seem to worsen. So let's see how we're going to manage this.
Yes, and we are going to talk together about another quite water-intensive dimension of island tourism, which is short-term rentals. So you have done lots of research on short-term rentals. I have to say at this point that Anna is one of the most prolific researchers in tourism, widely cited by her colleagues. She has done research at a very high level covering different aspects of tourism. And one particular line of research you have done is on short-term rentals. And this is why we invited you, and we're very glad that you accepted our invitation. So thank you for being here with us. Please share your perspective on short-term rentals by focusing on Cyprus, but also approaching in a more general way.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the invitation. You will have to also navigate through the slides as we discussed before. So let's begin, first of all, by trying to understand what we mean by short-term rental. Essentially, short-term rentals are fully furnished and fully equipped properties that the owner will rent out for a short period of time to somebody else. This is not something new, okay? So this is something that existed for decades in coastal destinations, in islands, for tourist purposes. So travelers would stay instead of a hotel in this short-term rental. Now, short-term rentals became very popular in recent years following the emergence and the popularity of a business model called the sharing economy. So sharing economy is also called peer-to-peer economy or collaborative economy, but in essence, what it describes is a business model where we have a digital platform that connects the service provider, in other words, the person, the owner of a specific asset, in this case, it would be a property, with the consumer. So two flagship companies that are related to tourism is Airbnb for shared accommodation and Uber for ride sharing, for transportation. Now, if you notice, Airbnb does not own any properties. There is no ownership. So the key, the characteristic of the sharing economy is that these digital platforms allow people, individuals like us, to use their assets. In this case, it would be part of their property, let's say a room in their property or an entire property that they may have, let's say a second home. And they would list this on the platform so that other people, travelers, for instance, would stay in this. So the digital platform is the intermediary, the facilitator connecting what we would call the host with the guest. So if we can move on to the next slide to see what are the main reasons for the popularity of shared accommodation, of short-term rentals. So there are various benefits that are offered to hosts. The first thing is that people that have underutilized or unused space, they can make money out of it. So they can actually complement their income by making some additional cash. This will, of course, improve their standard of living. And what we noticed, all these years with research that I've been doing with my colleagues is that a new type of profession seems to have emerged for hosts, for several hosts. So shared accommodation has offered people entrepreneurial opportunities. So we have not just owners of the properties listing this on digital platforms like Airbnb, but we have people whose profession is to manage 50, 100, and 150 properties. So a new type of profession has emerged. And apart from these economic benefits, another benefit that people decide to list their property on digital platforms is to have some kind of social interaction with guests. This seems to be the case for properties where the host will actually stay with the guest in the same space. Now, there are also various reasons why travelers would choose to stay in this type of short-term rentals. So the first reason, I guess, is it's cost effective. I mean, personally, I have 3 children. So, for a family of 5 to stay in a hotel, that means 2 rooms automatically. basically. So that's double the cost. So staying in short-term rentals is cost-effective. It also offers an alternative accommodation option, because now if we look at platforms like Airbnb, we see tree houses being listed, or odd type of accommodations like boats. So it's a different type of experience. A short-term rental is also more convenient for some. It offers more space. It offers privacy. It also offers flexibility for the traveler in terms of being able to stay longer or having more flexible check-in and check-out times. And also, since these short-term rentals tend to be, not always, but usually they tend to be in residential areas rather than tourist zones, travelers get to have a more authentic experience of how it is to live like a local. And of course, the social aspect, the social benefits, when you share your space with the host, then there is also that social interaction, especially for those who are traveling individually. So these are the main reasons why people would choose to stay in short-term rentals, and why owners of short-term rentals would list them out in these digital platforms. So if we move on into the impacts of short-term rentals, and since their expansion has been so rapid in various cities, and we have had various reactions to this proliferation of short-term rentals, the impact of this sector is currently a debate. So let's look at the positive impact first before we move on into the negative impact. Since we are talking about using underutilized resources, in this case it would be properties, short-term rentals are considered a more sustainable form of accommodation. So in other words, this sector has been characterized as contributing to the sustainability goal of destinations. So it's seen, or at least it was seen initially, as something positive. Other positive impacts that have been recognized is that the sector promotes cultural exchanges between the residents of a place and tourists, and generally seems to enhance what we would call community engagement, because like I said, these short-term rentals are typically found in residential areas. So there is a different form of interaction between the residents and the tourist when the tourist stays for a certain amount of time in residential areas rather than tourist zones. Another positive is that it revitalizes neighborhoods because it promotes property investment. So this tends to be the issue with areas in cities, let's say, where certain neighborhoods may not be popular. They may have various buildings that may be old, so they are not really inhabited by young people. So short-term rentals seem to offer some kind of opportunity of investment and revitalization of these specific neighborhoods. The sector also seems to address needs for accommodation to meet the demand of tourists, especially in areas where there is an undersupply of hotels. So from this point of view, short-term rentals may emerge as a complementary form of accommodation where there are not enough hotel units. Research also showed that the sector, by offering entrepreneurial opportunities, has the option of empowering vulnerable groups in the society, such as women. It creates jobs, and since these short-term rentals are usually targeted to people that want to stay a bit longer, people that want the convenience and the ability to cook, let's say, in the apartment, it can actually boost the local economy, because the tourists will not stay within the boundaries of the hotel, but most likely go to the local shop and buy food so that they can cook it, in the short-term rental in the property. So moving on to the negative impact of short-term rentals, and in recent years we have a lot of.
Please let me add that those negative impacts that you're going to present, I think, are especially felt in island destinations because of the scarcity of resources those negative impacts are, very much felt. So let's go through those negative impacts and see how they are amplified, in smaller islands.
Yes. Well, these negative impacts have been the, let's say, topic of discussion in recent years because, as with every phenomenon in tourism, we welcome something enthusiastically, and then as this phenomenon grows, we start seeing, the cracks and the issues that may appear, especially on the local community. And with short-term rentals, various negative impacts have been recognized recently. So the first thing that the sector has been accused of is that they contribute negatively to the already existing housing crisis that many places face across the world. So their popularity means that the rent prices go up, property prices go up. Of course, it has adverse effects on the local community. We have seen cases where local community has been displaced. And this is the case with many destinations where tenants are actually have to evacuate the properties and they cannot afford the high rent to stay in specific areas. So we see neighborhoods that are transforming into Airbnbs, basically, because the flagship company of the sector is Airbnb. So Airbnb is usually associated with the proliferation of short-term rentals. As a result of this, we see disruptions in neighborhoods, people complaining that this sense of a community, of a neighborhood has been lost since we have more tourists staying in neighborhoods rather than residents. And of course, there is the direct competition with traditional accommodation options like hotels, but there is also the loss of ancillary revenue for hotels, because hotels are not just offering accommodation, they also have restaurants. They offer this type of services to tourists. So when tourists choose to stay in short-term rentals, I guess a positive would be that they visit local restaurants, or they have to buy locally produced food, let's say from the mini market in the neighborhood, and cook in the property. But restaurants also lose revenue in terms of these ancillary services that they were offering. And the competition with hotels, I would say, has become worse in recent years because there is a specific characteristic that we notice with the short-term rentals sector. This sector has become, in recent years, more commercialized and more professionalized. So even though the sharing economy started from the philosophy that a peer would rent out their accommodation to another peer, this is not the case actually in many places anymore. So what we see is companies buying entire blocks of buildings, they renovate the properties, they transform this into Airbnb flats. So it's become more commercialized, it has become more professionalized. The services that the host has to offer have become more professional, equivalent to the services that hotels would offer. And this is an important characteristic to acknowledge, because we are moving into what I would call a more hybrid form of accommodation. For instance, we see platforms like Booking.com that used to include hotels and in recent years started to include flats. And then we see traditional sharing economy platforms like Airbnb, and in recent years they are now offering, they're including in their listings not just properties, but also bed and breakfast, boutique hotels. So what we are beginning to notice is a hybrid form of accommodation emerging, which of course has implications for the local community. Another issue that we notice is lack of regulation, safety concerns, of course, an increased carbon footprint and waste and pollution, because hotels may pay taxes for this, but what happens with short-term rentals? They are also producing waste, they are contributing to pollution, but they still remain highly unregulated in terms of this aspect. Congestion in residential areas, over tourism in places where tourists shouldn't be staying, theoretically. Pressures on public services and infrastructure, because it's not just the residents, the locals that are using these services and this infrastructure, but since these short-term rentals can be found in residential areas, now it's tourists also that are beginning to use this infrastructure and public services. And of course, a big issue that seems to have been controlled in a way is tax evasion. So tax evasion was, I believe, the primary concern of governments, and that's why we see regulation in recent years being applied towards this sector to ensure that the hosts would pay their contribution of tax that they make from this additional income. Now, if we can take a minute to look at the sector in Cyprus, as an example. So you know that Cyprus is the third largest island in the Mediterranean, so it's quite popular, it relies on tourism. And I would say that the hotel sector in Cyprus is quite strong in that they've got a very strong union, that they are able to lobby on a variety of aspects. But what we see in recent years, at least from statistics provided by Eurostat, is that the sector, the short-term rental sector in Cyprus, is increasing steadily. So there is popularity for this sector. There are awareness campaigns that have been initiated by the Deputy Ministry of Tourism in Cyprus that has led to an increase in terms of the registered short-term rentals. So this is another way of the government to control the sector, ensuring that the hosts will have to declare their income for tax purposes and ensuring that they will have to be registered in order to operate on these platforms. Now, of course, the most popular short-term rental platform in Cyprus, as in many places, is Airbnb. And currently, there are approximately 11,591 Airbnb listings that are active. And it's important to note active listings, because during COVID, many hosts decided to deactivate their listings. So this includes active listings. And as we can see, they have a 64% occupancy rate and a quite decent annual revenue per host. In terms of location, Limassol saw a very big increase in Airbnb listings prior to COVID, but I would say that the emerging destination for short-term rentals recently is Paphos. So Paphos is now acknowledged as becoming quite popular, with the number of short-term rentals increasing. So what do we see here? We see that it's primarily the coastal cities in Cyprus that are becoming popular for short-term rental provision. Now, let's go back to what you were saying, Dr. Kurtulas, with short-term rentals and island tourism. So short-term rentals, of course, are found in many places, in many cities across Europe, but within islands, their impact not necessarily vary, but the degree or the depth or the extent of the impact is felt differently. So if we look at the characteristics of islands, islands have by nature a vulnerable ecosystem. So we're talking about scarce land and rising sea levels because of climate change. So what does that mean? This means that we have less and less land to build on. If you can click just to see the bullet point below. What can short-term rentals do in this case? Theoretically, short-term rentals, because we're talking about the use of already existing property, they could help to limit hotel construction in places, in islands where, scarce land is already an issue. Also, the other characteristics that we notice with islands, at least in the Mediterranean, is that there seems to be heavy reliance on tourism, especially mass tourism. And at least this is the case with Cyprus. So how can short-term rentals, again, in theory, come in to help with this issue, with this problem? People staying in short-term rentals tend to have a specific tourist profile. They are seeking more authentic travel experiences. So we could assume that the provision of short-term rentals may help to diversify tourist profiles. Another issue that characterizes islands is that in terms of tourism, tourism is very seasonal. So most people will come during the summer months. So what do we notice is that during the summer months, we have over-tourism in islands, and short-term rentals, again, could help to distribute this issue of over-tourism in coastal areas specifically. And this tends to be very helpful when we have domestic tourists. So at least in Cyprus, what I hear every year is that Cypriots themselves are complaining that all the hotels are fully booked, or they're extremely expensive because it's cheaper to actually fly from the UK and stay in a hotel with, you know, some kind of a packaged holiday than to book it as a local independently. So a lot of Cypriots, a lot of domestic tourists are actually selecting short-term rentals for their holidays. Another issue that we need to acknowledge is that in islands, what we see is a trend called the all-inclusive package. So many people come on all-inclusive packages. What does this mean? This means that tourists tend to stay in hotels and they don't necessarily exit these hotels, as everything is already prepaid, everything that they need is already included in this hotel resort. So for the people that say that short-term rentals, you know, they are a direct competitor to the hotel sector, we need to acknowledge that at least in the case of islands, and this is the case with Cyprus, this may not necessarily be the case. I would say that hotels are relatively protected because a large majority of tourists arrive on the island on all-inclusive packages. So these characteristics seem to regulate the effect of the sector. So moving on into some conclusive remarks, short-term rentals can both substitute hotels as an accommodation option, but at the same time, they may complement the hotel sector. And there are various aspects that we need to consider in relation to this point. First of all, the market, the tourist market that an island has or an island relies on, the type of tourist that is attracted to a specific island context, and also the specific characteristics of the destination, because islands vary. They vary in size, they vary in terms of tourism development, they vary in terms of various factors, such as the tourist market, the tourist type they are attracting, and so on. So we cannot accuse the short-term rental sector of substituting hotels, but at the same time, the effect of this sector will be felt differently depending on various context-specific factors. Now, in the case of Cyprus, what I would like to highlight is that Airbnb has been, in a way, accused in recent years of increasing property prices, but I wouldn't put the blame solely on Airbnb or other digital platforms, because what we see is that in places like Limassol, we have a large number of foreign workers that come to work for very, very high salaries in Forex companies, so companies focusing on foreign exchange. So, you know, if you get 4,000 or 5,000 salary, you don't mind paying 1,000 for a studio, let's say. So this increase in foreign workers, and also the proliferation in universities that we notice that are developing in Cyprus in recent years, and by extent the increase in international student numbers, these also have played a role in what we now acknowledge is a housing crisis in certain cities in Cyprus. So it's not just the short-term rental sector that is to blame. At the end, the bottom line is that we need regulation in order to manage the effects of short-term rentals on islands. But again, this regulation will have to vary and definitely cannot include the same type of regulations that we use for hotels and then simply transfer them to the short-term rental sector. It's a different sector. It's got specific, let's say, vulnerabilities and issues that we need to consider, especially in terms of islands. So this is from me. I know that you will probably have questions.
So thank you so much, Anna. Yes, we have several questions coming through. Let us go through those questions. Sorry. I have quite a long list of questions, so please feel free to send any question you may have through by using the chat function. So the first question is, in turbulent times, what strategies can island destinations adopt to promote wellness or health tourism and attract mindful travelers? So this is a question to all panelists. So would somebody among you would like to answer? Eleni, Juliet, Anna, there are also many other questions following.
Where is this question? Is this question written somewhere? Or can
Yes,
you repeat, please?
it has been sent to me, so you cannot see this particular question. So let me read it again. In turbulent times, what strategies can island destinations adopt to promote wellness or health tourism and attract mindful travelers? So maybe I should go to Juliet. Are you attracting what we would call mindful travelers? Have you seen that the profile of your visitors has changed as you implemented those sustainability measures?
I think there's two subjects. There are two subjects here. Yeah, there are the conscious travelers who you can attract with sustainability measures, and you have the one really looking for wellness, health, tourism. That's quite a bit different because you can be sustainable, but and offer, but don't really have that mission of taking care of the health precisely. Because you have like destinations like Bali that are more specialized on the wellness tourism, for example. So that's not the principal positioning of Mauritius. But I know for some destinations, it's really it's a way to differentiate yourself, and you have to just demonstrate the impact you can have. It's something that I learned from the B Corp certification, meaning that when you want to highlight something, you have to speak through the impact you are obtaining. So, for example, if you want to specialize in the wellness health industry, that you have to be able to prove the impact you can do on the health of your guest. I don't know if the level of I don't know, sugar, rest. I don't know what would be the KPIs, but always communicate through impacts you want to achieve. I don't know if it's clear.
Yes, absolutely. If I may add to that line of thinking, what is important for a destination to establish itself as a wellness destination is to include what we call a strong sense of place. So it's important to do some research, identify any local wellness traditions or products that can be used in wellness applications, and provide that to your visitors. So Juliet mentioned Bali. Bali is an excellent example of a place that is making its long wellness tradition available to visitors. So Bali is a heaven for spa and wellness holidays. We are seeing also other places, so Java, also in Indonesia, or Hawaii, also highlighting their traditional way of providing health and wellness experiences. And so it is about making those experiences accessible to our visitors, incorporating those local elements. The same can be done also with products. So there are several hotel spas on the island of Crete incorporating pre-tan products such as olive oil or wine grapes or yogurt into their wellness offering. So the first starting point for planning such an approach is something that I have also been doing professionally on several occasions, is try to incorporate those local elements into your wellness offerings. So let me move on to the next question. How do you perceive Jeju Island in South Korea or other islands as a well-being and health tourism destination? Given its natural assets, what strategies or initiatives could further enhance its potential in this sector? I think that our previous position has partly answered also the second, this follow-up question. Jeju Island also has people with their own traditions, their own wellness traditions, their own well-being and health-related and dietary traditions. So it's about working with those elements and producing and coming up with a wellness proposition that truly reflects those traditions, the local products, and the local climate. So here comes a question to Anna. Many local governments are pushing Airbnb hosts to register officially and pay taxes, even on private homes. What are your thoughts on this approach, and what would you suggest for hosts navigating these regulations?
Remember what I said in the beginning of my presentation, that with the sharing economy, there is no ownership. So Airbnb does not own the properties, it just lists the properties. So the responsibility for tax payment lies with the host. Having said that, a question here is, what role does the platform as a company play in this? And I think that it's time for governments to sort of like sit down and acknowledge how this sector, generally called the sharing economy, can be regulated. And not just in terms of taxes, but also in terms of other aspects. For instance, in Greece, I was reading recently, I believe a law has passed about climate change tax or some kind of an initiative where basically every type of accommodation, including Airbnb and hotels, they need to pay a specific amount of tax per night of stay. That will go there into environmental management, essentially. So if the government in Greece can acknowledge Airbnb or short-term rental sector as being equivalent to hotels, then the question here is, what other type of responsibilities does the platform itself as a company have? And I think that it's time that more regulation needs to be applied, that will also acknowledge the company's role, the host's role, as the property owners who have to pay taxes as well, but also the guest's role. And it goes beyond financial burden and taxes. It has to do with pollution, with waste management, with the contribution of the sector in environmental pollution, especially in places like islands that have a more vulnerable ecosystem.
Okay, so thank you for your reply, Anna. The next question comes from Yeni. Yeni is studying in Japan at the Ritsumeikan University, but is actually from Bali Island in Indonesia. And we have two questions from Yeni. On the first question, I would like to have the insights of Eleni. So the first question is, tourists come to small islands to see the authenticity of the island. But since tourists come, of course, they need facilities like accommodation, road and restaurants. But because of these facilities, the authenticity might be reduced. So how to balance between keeping the island's authenticity while accommodating tourist needs. So we have this conflict on the island of Ios. Ios is a tiny island, but we have many businesses, especially nightclubs and bars, bringing an alien lifestyle to the island. But still, we are seeing people like you trying to protect the authenticity of this place. So how do you comment on this conflict, this clash between authenticity and, let's say, modern lifestyle?
It's a thing that is happening to most of the Greek islands. They are starting getting overbuilt because they become more and more famous. But slow tourism has proven it. That is a recent trend, that guests will always seek for authentic experiences in wherever they go. Whichever place they visit, they will seek this authentic experience, the real vibe of the real life of the island. So even in Mykonos, that is a quite built island, and people can find easily local life. People seek it, and we see that guests seek it, and we see cooking classes and this experience with the locals to rise again. So I strongly believe in guests trying to find local stuff to do.
I mean that the case study of Elenis, a business, and many other similar cases have proven that visitors want to see the authentic side of an island destination. They are willing to pay for having an authentic experience. They are willing to spend their limited time for experiencing that. So it's important that there are some business people, some professionals who will bank on providing truly authentic experiences by offering truly authentic cuisine and food, and also providing accommodation being inspired by elements of an island's heritage. So let's move on to the next question sent by Jenny. And Juliet, maybe you could help us with this question. So the question is, if we talk about island tourism, of course, it will be about beaches as well. In my understanding, beach is public space. However, some accommodations or restaurants claim the beach around them as private beach and are not allowing local people to visit the beach near those accommodations or restaurants. What do you think about this issue? So in Mauritius, I think there is this legislation about keeping the beaches accessible. How do you deal with that? Because you have several beachfront hotels. How do you deal with this issue?
Yes, I think it should never be possible to make a beach completely private. Because I don't think the coastline should be private. The design of the hospitality industry in Mauritius, because it's not old, but it's not new. And at that time, the hotels developed a lot on the coastline. And I think the more the island now develops, when you have a new project, you can't build hotels that close to the sea. You have new regulations now in Mauritius, and I think it's way better because it helps not to block the way to go to the beach. So yes, you mentioned the legislation. So even if really the buildings are really close to the sea, you have to let people come and cross the hotel. So you can't deny the access to anyone. And I think it's just so important for everyone because you're allowed, it's your country and everything. I know sometimes it can generate some challenge because you don't want sometimes your guests to be in front of big groups of people with music around, but most of the time it's just it doesn't represent really a challenge for us, not that much.
Okay, thank you for that. We have 3 more questions, and each one is going to each of our panelists. So a question for Anna. What are the differences between short-term rentals and Airbnbs? So if we can clear that up, because there may be a bit of confusion there.
Yeah, yes. So Airbnb is a platform that includes short-term rental. The issue is that Airbnb has become so popular that often we use the word Airbnb now as a verb. So we say, I've got a property, I want to Airbnb it. So that means I want to renovate it and then just list it on the platform. But basically, Airbnb is a company that, it's a platform that includes short-term rentals.
It's the most popular platform. There's also several smaller platforms, but as you said, now we are using Airbnb as quite a generic term. Yes.
Yeah, there are many other platforms. For instance, Couchsurfing used to be free, I think, before COVID. There is Airbnb. There's different types of platforms that are, appeal to more niche, let's say, groups of tourists. But Airbnb is the most popular, along with Uber. I would say they are the flagship companies of the sharing economy. But we need to highlight that it started with a different philosophy, and it has evolved into something which is now more professional. Yes. It started with people renting out a room in their house. Let's say they had an available room, so the guest could stay with the host, or they rented out an entire property. Maybe they had a second house somewhere. But now we see companies, professional companies, they buy properties around, I don't know, a city, a destination. They renovate them, they put them on Airbnb. So, you have companies, professional companies that are owning a large number of Airbnbs. And the hosts themselves, because of this commercialization and increased competition, they are now becoming more professional in what they offer. And there is also a budget like Superhost, who is a Superhost. So, since you're being rewarded in terms of how quality and how good your service is as a host, we see more and more professional aspects being, becoming evident in the service offered by individual hosts, by people like, you and me. And it's also worth mentioning that platforms like Booking.com initially were set up to include hotels, but because of the popularity of short-term rentals, they now include short-term rentals. So they now include properties that might be listed on both platforms. So yes, from my research that I have done with several hosts, not just in Cyprus, but across Europe, most hosts will have their property on both Booking.com and Airbnb. So this is what I meant before when I said that we have moved into a more hybrid type of accommodation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this clarification. I have a question for Eleni from Yanis. So the question is, first of all, congratulations for the business. I really like the way you created this. I wanted to ask how easy or hard was for you to communicate your marketing strategies with your guests, how you let them know that your business is on the island, ready to provide this experience when you began with this undertaking.
All right, let me remind you that we had almost a zero budget. So we took advantage of the social media as much as we could. And we had quite down-to-earth strategies. That meant a lot of free offering of our services to locals, to workers in local hotels and restaurants. So we invited all these people to come and experience what we offer, so they could have a first-hand experience and see that they could they could suggest something nice to their guests, so they could have an indirect impact from all this. So a lot of free visits and free treats, and we also had to work on our soft skills. We had a glimpse in our guest psychology. We tried to touch them. They could see in us, in our simple everyday family, they could see their parents, their grandparents, difficult times that their families could have in the past. We were completely honest. For example, the first year we didn't have toilet because we didn't have the budget to build a toilet for our guests. So we didn't find excuses. We said that we are so sorry, you can use our toilet, it's clean and nice, but we didn't have the budget this year to create a toilet. So this honesty made them come closer to us. And at the end, they would almost all of them ask, so how can we help you to become better, to take a step further? And we didn't ask for anything, we just asked for an honest, simple review, to spend a bit of their time when they go back home to write a nice review, because we know that nowadays guests mostly rely on their phones to investigate a place where they're going to see what would be nice to do. And we accepted any kind of help of locals and of guests. Some of the guests had blogs, some of the guests were photographers, so they send us a few nice photos after their visit. So we were completely honest, and a lot of free visits and treats to locals.
Okay, thank you so much, Eleni, about this. And Juliet, there is one final question. There's also a question from John about festivals. Let's see if we have the time to answer this one, but let's go first to Juliet. So the question is, how can sustainable tourism practices be effectively balanced with the economic goals of the tourism industry? So it's again this dilemma, is sustainability working against profitability? So this is many people worrying about.
May I add something to this question? May I add something to this question? Because I have the same question. And Juliet said that there is a long-term profit, if I remember correctly. But how much long-term can a business hold?
It's quite difficult to answer, as sometimes we have to take risk to see if, and you're not sure it will work that much. In our case, it has been the case actually that we started our sustainability journey really to go really much further just before COVID, and at the reopening, we've seen that our sales have just went so much higher than before, and our visibility, how partners were really engaging with us. So one part of it was a risk because, of course, we had to invest a bit on it. But each time we work closely with the finance guys, and we are able to limit the risk at a certain level, so what we can offer or not. And when you see, like in sustainability, you can there are so much things you can do, and you can't be committed to everything. So you have to choose what axis you can go to, and what will differentiate your business from your competitors. It will help you to prioritize the actions and ensure it will drive business easier. For example, if people are coming to the island to discover the culture, so maybe you can do more about promoting the local culture, make artists live from their art. So that's a lot of things we are doing with them, rather than, for example, I don't know, another sustainability action that could be done. I don't have an example like that, but when you study your target, it will help you choose and prioritize what type of actions you can do. So focus more on the biggest impact you can do and on what would push your differentiation, I would say.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Kazem, do we have time for one last question?
Actually, we are 10 minutes behind, but yes, please have the last question, and then we see how we are going to conclude the panel. I see a lot of questions and interactive panel, and it's really a good one. Yes, let's have the last question too.
Okay. So I have a question from John about festivals. We will skip this question, both for time constraints, but also because we did not talk about it. But John, please feel free to get in contact with me through LinkedIn. I would be happy to exchange some thoughts on this. I've worked for many years in the festival sector, so feel free to contact me directly. And let's go to the last question for Anna. So I'm reading the question from Ahmed. According to the UN tourism message, tourism should be accessible to everyone, and Airbnb has made budget-friendly travel possible. However, new government regulations, including taxation, are making it more difficult. What's your perspective on this?
I think one of the positive things with platforms like Airbnb is that they include a range of accommodation options. So like I said before, you may stay in odd accommodations like a tree house, or for instance, there are boutique hotels now that are included in Airbnb. But it's also an option to stay in someone's house, which of course is more budget friendly, to stay in a room instead of an entire property. So I think that while the platform has expanded, its offering, it still has the more budget-friendly accommodation option, depending, of course, on what the traveler wants to do, and whether they want to share, let's say, the space with the host.
Okay. So thank you so much. Many thanks to our three panelists, Anna, Eleni, Juliet, Kazem. Over to you.
Thank you so much. We don't have much time. I just have a quick comment. The topic is about sustainability. Small islands are a representative they represent the destinations that they have limited resources. And I also want to add a word to sustainable tourism, which is regenerative tourism, how tourism can sustain and regenerate the resources of the island. In many cases in Japan, where I have been living and doing research, we have problem with regenerating and sustaining the resources available in a destination. So it's been a question also here that how tourism can sustain and regenerate. This is a comment, or maybe if I can get some feedback from the panel. I want to know in your destination, is tourism the main livelihood, or is the island livelihood diversified with tourism? And how we identify the role of tourism as let's say as the phenomenon that can sustain and regenerate the resources in the island. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on it, or we move on to concluding remark. Any comment from the floor?
I can tell you something
Yes,
about
please.
that. Because Ios is an island that completely depends on tourism, unfortunately, nowadays. It used to be a self-sufficient island. People used to live here without needing anything else from the mainland. But nowadays, unfortunately, we're almost 100% dependent on tourism. That is created because people are more educated, and they can see the difference between working with the land, for example, and working in a hotel. It's a much, much easier job to do. Why should anyone want their children to suffer working on the land while they can work in a much, much more, how can I say, easy job? So it's a huge conversation. It's a huge conversation. If tourism stops for any reason right now, locals will lose everything. They will not be able to survive. This is the truth for Ios, and I think more Greek islands are following.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted to hear that, because tourism come and take it over, while sustainable tourism in concept is something different. It's just for sustaining the livelihood, diversification of the livelihood. But if tourism became a dominant livelihood itself, then we should bring everything for tourism. But actually, tourism is for the community and livelihood, authenticity, and the original resources in the destination. And islands are not an exceptions. Thank you very much. Malcolm, do you want to report, or you want to do it after the concluding remarks?
I don't think there's time now, if you can hear me. Look,
Yes.
one thing I got from this excellent discussion was that you do what you can with what you have. So you can talk about connections and adaptability, stakeholders, and so on. Within that framework, you're going to be much closer to reaching conclusions that'll work in the island context. But my voice is rather bad at the moment, so we'll give it to Jafar and he can finish this off. Thank you very much for a most interesting webinar.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Over to you.
So, as usual, Jafar, we give the most difficult job to you, and eager to hear your concluding remarks. You don't want to call it conclusion, I know, but the concluding remarks. Jafar, floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Demetrius and panel, for a very engaging topic discussion. I truly benefited from it. There seemed to be a sort of unstated hypothesis here, and that is, I think the assumption was that the tourists who come to islands are there at least for a week or longer. The distinction, we could make some distinctions when we have tourists coming only for 2 or 3 days. When they come for 2 or 3 days, the issue of authenticity, the issue of cheese making, all other issues goes away, because they want to soak in the sun in those 2, 3 days. The only way you can take them away from beaches is if it is raining that day, the middle day, the first day, the second day. Otherwise, they want to stay right there. So I think all of you had the assumption that the tourists who are coming to the islands are there for a week or longer. The subjects we covered are not for island tourism, are very much similar to the non-island tourism. Think about authenticity. It's the same all over. think about seasonality, sustainability, wellness. Wellness is not just an issue for island tourism, it's issue everywhere. So I think what I really wanted to uh, in a way suggest to Dimitri and panel is that maybe we need to have future panels on how wellness tourism is different in island tourism than other places. In the mind of the audience, in the mind of tourists, wellness is good air, clean air, water, beautiful sea, etc. All the things that islands have. So all of these issues become the issues which are universal issues become very special in island tourism, like seasonality. What do the islands do during the off season? And the off season could be 6 months. And if they have only one product, and that is tourism, then what do they do? So should we talk about diversification, or should we stick with the idea of mono product and accept the seasonality as is and just move forward? So each of these issues, wellness, tourism, seasonality, authenticity, sustainability, all of them would have special meanings in the case of island tourism. I really learned a lot, and I also you helped me to form new questions in my own head, and hopefully we could have some future webinars that specifically deal with the situation of a given concept in island tourism, such as seasonality in island tourism, which would be a big issue. What is the difference between seasonality of island tourism and the mainland seasonality? I think mainland people would have less problem because they have multiple products and they can be engaged in it. But I think Eleni or one of you said that we have nothing else but tourism. So if we have nothing else but tourism, then I wonder what the island would do for the 6 months or 7 months or 4 months. The issue of interaction between host and guest is less relevant when island tourism is a 3-day trip or 2-day trip. There would be no interaction because they're always on the beach. Interaction with the host and guest in island tourism begins if they stay for a week or longer. So there are similarities, there are differences, and that makes that make the webinar very engaging, very thought-provoking. Let's put it that way. We got some answers, and yet we have new questions to ask for future articulation. Back to you, Qasim.
Thank you, Jafar. So I see you opened the floor again, and we for sure need Dimitris and his team to come back with more. Maybe we need to narrow it down. The topic is very wide to make a conclusion at once. So maybe we can see the sustainability in terms of authenticity, in terms of local resources, or maybe the seasonality. I have a very special interest in cheese making tourism, to be honest. And here we have a very big market for this kind of authentic activities. So maybe I don't believe that we can have one solution or model for everywhere. And I think sustainability is something like that should be place-based. Each place has its own a sustainable solution. So what we can do is to share the lessons and to share the models and to learn from each other. So we are here to accommodate the discussion again. Scott is a place that is a platform that we share the sustainable and successful models. Thank you very much. I know there are questions coming still to Scott admin, and they're forwarding it to me, but there are more, and we will try to answer or forward the questions to the moderator and speakers later. The time is much or way beyond the schedule, and I would like to thank all of the audience who stayed with us. My colleagues in Scott admin are going to open the cameras, so you can open your cameras, and we have a group photo if you like. So I would like to invite everybody to start the video cameras, and let's have a photo together.
It seems they are rather shy. We have a rather shy audience today.
Yes, but some of them maybe are in different time zone, and
Yes,
they
exactly.
yes. Okay, I can see more faces.
I
Great.
think we are in about 12 different time zones right now.
Yeah. Perfect. Great. I can see some of the old colleagues here. Thank you very much for your support and being with us again. Okay. With a
But another observation where I see a lot of young faces, the next generation is showing interest in tourism.
yes, exactly. So let me borrow your big smiles, and we have a group photo. Thank you again, and hope to see you in the next webinars again. See you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you, the panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Eleni. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Have a great day, great
Thank
weekend.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kazım. Thank you, Zafar, for your kind invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.